Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello there, podcast lovers. Welcome to the last episode of the Shipping Podcast in 2017. This is number 75. And I am going to introduce you to Norbert Kouwenhoven. He is an executive at IBM in the Netherlands, working on a global business service, customs, borders and revenue management. But he's also the point of contact between IBM and Maersk when it comes to blockchain. This interview was made in Venice on the 13th of September this year. We were both visiting the Sea Traffic Management Halfway Conference, and I was introduced to Norbert to do an interview for a client. But as you know, when opportunity knocks, you need to go with the flow. So this interview is a little bit different. It doesn't follow the same templates that you are used to hearing in this shipping podcast. I wanted to know everything there is to know about blockchain. The Kate we are referring to is Kate Adamson, CEO of Future Nautics Group. She's also the symbol of Shipping 2030. So that conference and she has been traveling the world, and that is what we are referring to when we talk about Kate. I hope you find it enlightening to listen to Norbert. That is how I felt when I left that not-so-quiet place where we did this interview. So, without further ado, this is Norbert Kouwenhoven for you. Can I ask you something just for curious?
Of course, yeah.
How come you started with the blockchain? IBM, how come you...
How come IBM? That's a good question. Well, it's quite recent. I mean, so we had always the data pipeline concept from containers. We've been working and talking about that around 10 years. And that was always about data sharing in the pipeline on one hand, and we call it a data pipeline, and on the other hand, on tracking devices on the container. So you would know where the container is and you would know what's inside. And where the container has been. That's also can be interesting to know from anti-terrorism or anti-smuggling perspective. And that we use normal technologies. Yeah. And then last year or 2 years ago, this blockchain technologies came up. And of course, new IT technologies, IBM has research, and so they're on top of that, actually helping to create it. I'm trying to remember what the first blockchain use was. I think there's a story about that, but I forgot about that. But so about 2 years ago, it became serious, and this Hyperledger Foundation, this open source foundation, was producing a usable blockchain programming language. So you could build things with it quite easily. And we built some little things of, little process chains, and they work quite well. And then we realized this is really different. It gives an additional dimension, and not for everything. Because you can overdo it. Sometimes you don't need that level of security if you go to a swimming pool and you buy a ticket and don't take a big blockchain thing. But for government-related stuff, for financing stuff, identity paper, that type of proofs of ownership, legal documents, it's really fit. So it started to roll, and then IBM was the lead, and started to invest, became more in the lead, and at some point it reached our data platform. And then we did a test last year with Schneider Electronics, where we used blockchain to support a shipment from France on the train to Antwerp, and then on a ship to US. And we supported the documents in the blockchain, and that worked really well. So then IBM and Maersk said, okay, this is good, we have to start doing this. And they decided to put up big money, start a joint venture, and made a press release that IBM and Maersk together are going to launch a blockchain support platform. That was last December. And at end of this year, end of 2017, it will be available commercially on the market. And what we're doing now, we did some other projects like the Schneider Electronics one. And this half year, we're doing what they call large-scale projects, We are doing bigger volumes to look at the volume effects and also the performance. So that's why we learned we have to reduce the blockchain a little bit. And we're now figuring out also the price points, how expensive will it be, and what's an interesting price level. Finalized, and the joint venture agreements have to be finalized. And then, so we're now working with it and onboarding mostly shippers. So DuPont, Dow, Tetra Pak, those are parties who participate in pilots. And these pilots actually, so there's STM where we are now. There's like a sister project that's called CORE. And these projects are all done under the wings of that CORE program. So there are applied research, if you like. So that makes it very easy to maneuver and to test, and people like to play. It's without commitments, and we learn a lot, and how to use it, where to use it, where not to use it. And it's going really well.
And I understand that the more people, the more companies that are involved, the better for the blockchain.
Well, that is more for if you talk about the Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a slightly different model. In Bitcoin, it's about an anonymous crowd who together vote that if I sell my blockchain to you, it's registered, and then if there's, let's say 51% of the crowd agrees, then that is a fact. So it's a little bit like that. So there's not one arbiter or referee for that. It's like a voting system. And so that's a slightly different version of using blockchain. We use blockchain for very specific handling. As said, the container is handled by party A. He uploads something. There's another party B who's registered, does something else. Party C does something else. And those blocks are plugged together. And we know who will use it. We have strong access control. Who can see what? So it's what they call a permissioned blockchain. The Bitcoin thing is more, you have anonymous users, and the block is Bitcoin. My Bitcoin sold to you, and you sell to somebody else. So you can always track the history.
Because I think I've read a news article about you're working with Maersk, and they said something like, the more participants, the better.
Yes, but that's not so much for the blockchain technology. That, at least in my view, that is for. So we have a data pipeline, and the more information about the container, the more chance that you find something useful. Yeah. So customs, for example, would like to know as much as they can to find, is there something inconsistent that we can find? Hey, here's something at the bananas from Norway. I always say bananas from Norway, that is suspicious. And so and they like to know everything. Or maybe there's a company involved who is a toy company, but if you look at the website, it is not a toy company, but another type of company. And from a trader side, you might want to know the history of the ship delays. If you see that in every port he was 3 days delayed, you think, well, he might be 3 days delayed here. So if you have more information, you have more chance of benefits. And if you only have the consigner putting information and the receiver, and you don't know what's in between, then you cannot do a lot. So in that sense, the more parties really give up everything and share information, the better it works. And the
so
more
it only goes for you to educate the journalists, like you're telling me now.
Yeah, well, it is not.
Maybe they were describing the Bitcoin. I don't know. I read it like it was blockchain.
Yeah.
Are there? I mean, this is container lines.
Yeah.
Are you looking at, for instance, oil and things
so
like that?
And that's just because we cannot boil the ocean. So we said, let's first fix containers.
Yeah.
We have a first group of users. So obviously, Maersk and IBM own the platform, but we say it is an industry-wide platform. So everybody should use it, and the more the better. And we start with containers and the events around the container, which are specific. You load the container, you offload it. And now we have that covered. The enrollment is mostly now with Maersk people because it's easy, because Maersk is part of the ownership. We are now onboarding others. And then the next step is we don't just stay with containers, we use liquid bulk. So you don't load the container then, you have a process, for example, where you measure the depth of the ship. And if there's oil in and it goes 20 centimeters downwards, you know how many oils in, that type of stuff. So it is slightly different events, slightly different shape documents.
And that is already, in a way, the description of the process is already there.
It's
because
planned.
The oil companies are, the vetting thing, and it's so much more strict than
Yes.
the container.
Well, the containers are also quite systematic, I would say. Liquid bulk is on our radar, so that's the next wave. Dry bulk. Then there is the vessel, the life of a vessel. And then the question is it the vessel or the vessel voyage? So if you think about vessel voyage, then it's more or less like the container. And we have, by the way, some vessel data in the container pipeline as well. Some events are ship is arriving, and then we know which containers are on the ship, so we populate them, so we know then all these containers are arriving. So there is already some crossover between the container events and ships events.
Were you involved in Maritime before this project started?
I was always working on the government side as an IT guy, then an IBM guy, supporting governments like customs or police or immigration to monitor imports and exports of people. And so that was a bit my specialty. And then in the Maritime, we have been for 10 years working on European funded projects like IT8, Cassandra, now it's Core, and STM is another one. And they're all building on the concept of data sharing. So the maritime container world was always their topic, so I've been around that world, but I don't have a maritime background or something like that.
You talk about open source, because I think maybe that is not a concept really known to the maritime industry.
No, I guess not. That's an IT concept. So the point is that if you are IBM or Microsoft or Oracle, you might have products which are Microsoft only. And if you use them, you have to pay a license to Microsoft. And the thing is, there might be a vendor lock-in, so you might have to use the Microsoft add-ons as well. Same for IBM or Oracle. And so they have invented the concept of open source, which means software which is on a platform where everybody, literally everybody, can log in and change or improve it. So it's like crowdfunding for money. That's this crowdfunding way to create software. So if a programmer has nothing to do, he could log on and work a bit on the code. So it's a different concept. There is, of course, some regulation and some control. So it's not IBM owned, Oracle owned, Microsoft owned. It's open source. And this Hyperledger thing was deliberately chosen to be an open source because and there's 500 companies supporting that, and then open source communities. And so it's shared. It's from everybody. It's not an IBM thing or Microsoft thing. And we say that because we don't want the platform to be that people think if I use that, I have to use IBM products. So it's not an IBM product. It's just a product which you can plug from the web. And IBM will make money anyway. We think if this platform is there and people are using that, they will need analytics because they have so much information that they could use. They would say, oh, can somebody figure out for me the average delay of this and this ship and put it in a nice graph? That's the work what we would love to do. And then we'll make money out of that. Or people would have to be connected to the platform. We would help there. But it's not so much the software itself.
I met with Diana McDonald in Copenhagen, and I interviewed her.
Yeah.
And she explained blockchain so I could understand.
Yeah.
But I understand from her that if Maritime can get grips of this blockchain, then everyone else can do it, because there are so many parties involved in transactions in the chain.
True. It's an ecosystem. There's the consignor, and he gives it to a freight forwarder, and he finds a transporting company, and there's government doing stuff, and goes to the port and the terminal operator, and the harbor master coaches the ship, and there's a tugboat who. So everybody wants to know when is the container or the ship's arriving, so when is my container arriving, and agents. But there's a lot of those actually. Whatever industry you take, I think that you have things like that, chains like that. The society is becoming so connected. Yeah. Also cross-country. There's also a lot cross-border stuff where things hop from country to country. Think about transit shipments. Well, that's again logistics, of course, but also on shore it's the same. But if you think about a suspect of a crime, he's suspect, so it's handled by police, and then he's arrested, and then he goes to court, and there's a prosecutor, and there's a defender, and there's a judge, and then there's a court case, and then there is maybe a conviction, and then there is a prison, and the guy or lady after the prison has to be re-socialized, and at some point he's back in society. And so there's also a lot of parties there. And if you think about hospitals, patients, if you think there's so many processes that you can treat that way.
But I also think that at the moment it's a hype with the blockchain in maritime.
Yeah.
And for us, I think that will mean that we may be able to attract the brightest brains to our industry.
Oh, yes.
On the IT
it
side
is.
of things.
If an energy is, if a sector is moving or transforming, which I think the maritime industry now is doing, they're ready for change. They're a bit behind, I would say. Blockchain is a nice fit. So you will see when change is happening, everybody jumps on the train.
And also, in a way, for me, being a woman in this male-dominated industry, it will mean that there is no issue with gender, because
everybody can do blockchain.
Yeah.
Well, I hope there is no issue with gender at all. I mean, anybody can steer a ship these days. I mean, you don't need to be a man to steer a ship.
No, of course not. But there are not that many seafarers that are female.
Yeah.
And in the old times, it used to be recruitment on shore from ships.
Yeah.
So there are not that many women within the
no,
maritime.
it's I understand it's a male, but it doesn't have to be, because I think the technology these days is also, gender friendly, if you like. There's not a lot of jobs where you really have to have big muscles to run it. There is of course part of that, but I think it's probably more historic than a must. Yeah.
I've been with the Shipping 2030 with Kate. I was in Copenhagen in March.
Okay.
And at that time, it was still like, why do we need connected ships and things like that? And now, last week we were in Singapore.
Yeah.
And now people are talking about, how can we use this?
Yeah.
So I see the change only in 6 months.
Yeah.
And I met with some startups and people who are actually doing these open source things and applications on top of.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think it's happening. I wouldn't say without the knowledge of the shipping industry, but there is a discrepancy between people in the maritime industry and the people who really wants to develop and make.
But I think it probably first get a kind of a consulting consensus in the IBMs, the Accentures of this world, who think about an industry or McKinsey and who conclude that industry is now ready for, they're next. They're ready for change. We could bring A, B, C, D, and E, and okay, there's also work for us. So we're going to figure out how would that new industry look like, and how can we get it from where it is to where it can be, and then where is the part that Accenture, IBM, Microsoft will play. So, and then there is, I wouldn't say an attack, but there will be kind of from all sides input to the CEOs. Hey guys or ladies, look here what you could gain if you would implement this, and everybody will have the same approach, because there's a kind of a consensus in the consultants and the suppliers that this could be done. And then you need some. First, you get a phase where everybody says, if this will happen, I will jump on the train. I've been a lot in those discussions. It's a great idea, Norbert, but if the train is running, I'll be the first to jump on the train. Then I said, do you want to invest to be the locomotive? You want to start the train? No, I don't want to start the train. I'll jump on the train because I see. So that was for the last 10 years or so. And
is that maritime only, or is it every
No,
industry?
I think that was very specific for ecosystem things. Because it is sometimes one person has cost, or one party, where another party gets the benefits. So for the chain, or for the ecosystem as a whole, it's beneficiary, but the benefits don't land near the investor. So you need to break that chain. You need to have a group as a whole who says, we're going to do this. And then on average, everybody benefits. And maybe the cost then can be reshared, that the guy who gets the benefits pays the most. But if you talk to an individual, no individual will start. And now you have the fact that outsiders like IBM and Maersk have said, okay, we're going to break that chicken and egg situation. We're going to build a platform. So it is there. And now the users can pay based on the benefits they get. So big benefits, big pay, low benefits, low pay. So we will kind of redistribute that, but we have taken the risk. We've invested a lot of money to be the locomotive, to get the ecosystem started. And you cannot, that's the same with the smokers, you can never agree to stop smoking. You need from the outside somebody to say, no, we're going to do it. And then people will stop smoking, at least that's what you hope then. It's a little bit here the same. You need an outsider to break the deadlock. And that's what happened. And in other industries where you have an ecosystem, you would have the same. If you sell to a group, selling to a port, selling to the prisoner example is the same. Everybody benefits in the end, but the Social Security is not going to pay for tracking the prisoner or the suspicious person from a crime. So somebody has to say, I'm going to pay for this platform, and then I'll get my money back because everybody will improve.
But when it comes to the big data or the data science, that will be kept in the joint venture platform, or who will benefit from that? Because that is also a value.
Yeah, no. So what our specific vision is that we provide a platform, let's say an empty platform, and users can use it. So they pay for the use of the platform, we get our money back, we're happy. Then users will, so a group of players from a consignor, a freight forwarder, they will together figure out we're going to use the platform and we'll benefit. And then somebody else will say, hey, since you are using that platform, you have all this data, I will build for you something very clever. I will charge you, I don't know, 100,000 euro, and I will give you every day an estimated time of arrival forecast based on the weather in the channel. Because I know if you leave Lisbon 12 o'clock and it's storming, you will arrive that late. If the sun is shining, it will be that time. So there's all kind of added value, analytics, forecasting opportunities for startups or bigger companies. Might also be IBM. But that's an additional layer. So we create a situation where a lot of people can add value and make money. And we try to get part of that. But we realize for us it's more important to get the system going. So we're looking like the angels from heaven. We're not, of course. We're just inventors who try to get change on the wagon, and that's working. And every ecosystem, I would say, has similar things. But shipping is very fit for it because it's very, rational. Container goes from A to B. You pay for it's logistics, is calculation, and 1% faster is so much benefit, and it's more easy to calculate than prisoners and court cases and re-socialization. So
what about the STM? I see that as the infrastructure part of making shipping more connected to, I don't know.
It is. So I see STM. There's a lot of different sides of STM, but I would expect STM to, one of the things, to provide an infrastructure which is not containers, but is about the vessel voyage. So you would have all the information about the ship's voyage from going to port A, predicted time of arrival, then an event, somebody says, I want another time of arrival, so you get an optimized time of arrival. These are, for me, events, which you could all log and you could trace back. About the ship, you could look, what is the crew, what's the name of the captain, you could store the certificate of the captain, is he eligible to fly the ship, or what do you call that, to drive the ship, to sail the ship. You could look at the crew list and look, is the crew list still the same as in the previous port, or did somebody literally drop off the boat or illegally enter the country. You can check the passenger list, you can check the maintenance of the ship, you can see the licenses, is the ship licensed to get into the port of whatever, with the depth it has, with maybe the type of ship, the chemicals on board. And that should STM on one hand do, so I would call that the non-real-time stuff. And the other half of STM, and I don't know if it's half, if it's 50-50, but the other layer of STM is the real-time stuff, the navigation stuff, which is a little bit the same, but more sensor-based, that is more communication. So it's also events, but I'm here, I'm getting there, I'm this direction. And these are connected with, if you're here and you go that fast, then you probably will end up there in the port at that time. So there is a link, but it's like two worlds. Because in this real-time world, there's a lot of issues about full-time, 24/7 connectivity. And technology on board of the ships is still, there's not always this good internet connection. There's sometimes blackouts. So there is a lot of real hard infrastructure also to be fixed. And that's not where I have a good view of. But so those are the two things that STM is doing. And I think they're on a good track. But a lot of miles have to be made.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Thank you, Norbert. I think there are so many different perspectives that has come to light in this interview. It's a lot about connectivity, of course, but that is something I usually am interested in. But also how digitalization is forcing ourselves to know more about IT, and how IT people comes to know a lot about the maritime industry. and how I can see that is one of our unique selling points to the younger people. I will be waiting to hear your comments on this episode. I have now recorded and released 75 episodes of the Shipping Podcast. I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and I really enjoy it. Looking into 2018, I will do some changes. I will try and lift my concept a little bit more to get more people to listen and more advertisers. I think there is a future for audio within the shipping industry. I can see that there are so many people listening, and I can also understand that there are some brands that realize that getting into the ears and heads and hearts of my listeners is worthwhile. On that note, I will leave you and love you. I wish you a happy new year and welcome back. There are more episodes in pipeline for you. So, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.